Let's talk a minute, just real briefly, about the different types of questions and go through examples of each. Deborah, what's an example of a closed question?
It's a yes/no statement. It can be answered very simply, and it generally has to do with just getting the information as to whether something has happened or not happened.
Right. What's an example of an open question?
Who, why, when, what.
Right. Needs and what'd you do this weekend?
Mhm.
Would be an example of an open
Yeah,
question.
you will give more detailed answer to these questions.
Deborah, we talk a lot about probing and clarifying questions.
Mhm.
Are they the same thing, or are they kissing cousins?
Well, they're kissing cousins, but I think the way I think about it, probing is you continue, you're digging down, you still don't understand, so you keep asking till you hit rock bottom.
Mhm.
Clarifying is just to shed light, to really to illuminate what the topic is or what the question
So if there's an
is.
accident on the playground, are you going to ask clarifying questions or probing?
Clarifying.
Right.
You need to know what happened, why did this happen, where was the child?
If someone is really,
When?
really upset, are you going to ask more probing questions or clarifying?
You might do both.
Right.
Probing is going to be good, and then probably the clarifying will come in.
Right.
Right? Mhm.
Right.
Because probing will help you to understand the reason.
You know, why are you so upset? Why,
Yeah.
you know, what's happening here?
Right.
And then, so she hurt your feelings, tell me why, what's your relationship like when you're not in conflict?
Yeah.
Would be a clarifying.
Hypothetical questions. What would you do if? How do you think this child will respond if he does not feel judged? A hypothetical. Do you ever use those, any of you
I do
guys?
it all the time, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Are they important or effective, do you think, Star, in team meetings sometimes
Yeah.
when you're stuck?
We're asking hypothetical questions right now. What if we, in certain classrooms, allow the teachers that have Montessori training to not be assigned to a subject? What will that look like? How will that be? What will that mean for the teachers who are tied to a subject? You know, will that allow the children more freedom? Will that allow training to happen? What are the negatives? What are the positives?
So if we
It
want
probably-
to, go ahead.
So it probably leads to more projection of the
Exactly,
situation.
but it allows you to make a good decision because hopefully you're covering every possible thing that might go wrong or that might,
So you're brainstorming.
successful.
When you're doing hypothetical questions, it allows more brainstorming.
you're
to
setting
come-
up a what-if situation.
Okay.
And then you're looking all around it from every angle, right? To say, okay, if it looks like this, then what will happen to the morning learning block? Or what will happen then, you know, to the schedule?
So that's hypothetical. Again, a kissing cousin to that is reflective. Hypothetical tends to be more future oriented. Reflective tends to be more past. What did you learn when you think back on that experience? What did you take away from it?
Right.
Would be an example of a reflective question.
And it could be tied. We did try this once, and then let's talk about what we felt when we did try it and why it wasn't successful. And the teacher might say, I felt, you know, that it was chaotic or we
So
lost
then the
control.
last one is leading questions, which anytime I get people ask me leading questions, I just feel so manipulated. Is there ever a time that leading questions are appropriate?
Well, they are with the child, I will tell you that, because they're learning how to communicate. And then what happened? You know, so sometimes you have to encourage them. It could be considered you are leading them. And I suppose if you have a teacher who's really finding it difficult to communicate, if you ask leading questions that allow them to communicate with you better, but here's the thing about a leading question, you can't put your own bias into that question. And I think those are the types of leading questions that you're really talking about when you say.
Right, like if I said to Star, we're in an intense meeting about something we're gonna do in the classroom, and I said, Star, did you even stop to think about the needs of the children when you came up with that idea? Is that a question or a judgment of your character?
Judgment.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Those are
So, but
fighting
do
words.
Or you
they
didn't
sound
really think this was
judgmental?
gonna work, did you?
Yes.
Yeah.
That sounds very
What were you
judgmental.
thinking?
But then give me an
Because you've already
example of
set
a
it
good
up. There's
leading
no good
question.
way. What
There
was
are
I
no good
thinking?
leading questions.
Well, I was
Okay.
thinking that, you know,
They all are judgmental.
you've already set that person
I
up
would say
to be
yes.
defensive,
Defensive,
right? They cannot give any answer that won't sound defensive when you ask them. That's
Not-
what you're
yeah.
talking about, a leading
Not
question.
all leading questions are judgmental. Some are manipulative to get you to an answer you don't want, right? But the intent is not pure.
Right.
Would you say that if a person feels on the defensive after being asked, like, that is one way to know if it's a good leading question or a negative leading question, is when it puts a person in a place of defensiveness rather than opening up the conversation.
I
That could
don't
be-
think there's any place with adults in leading questions. I think you can get to the same place asking clarifying and probing questions personally, or reflective, and it takes out the manipulation and the judgment. That's just my opinion.
Well, if it's a good leading question, it will be a hypothetical question or a reflective
Probably.
question, right?
Or
Probably.
probing, I mean, it could be.
But that we call them something else, is for purpose of clarity, right? You're saying.
But it is, in the definition, it says it is generally used to try to put words in someone
someone
else's
else's
mouth. Right. That's
Or to gain an
manipulation.
advantage. over
Yeah.
them.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's a lot of ways you can ask questions. They're all effective, and a couple are not very effective.
Mhm.
Okay?